Hello. Whee. How long have we got? I'll time myself. My name's Mike Lovely. I work for Simpleweb, and I'm talking about the Symfony Console Component. So what is it? It's this, which basically says that it's a tool that helps you build your own command line applications, and that's for any task that you would want to automate. So the idea is that the user, if that's you or one of your colleagues, supplies some arguments on a command. Your command will do something with those arguments. I think using the Symfony Console command is faster than writing commands from scratch because it comes with lots of useful helpers and stuff. There's like automatic error messages, which I think are really great, and progress bars, which are really cool, and things like that. I just wanted really to just dive right into an example. So that's what I'm going to do. I've already got a sort of a test project set up that I've just called website, and all I've required in is the Symfony Console Component, and also the Symfony file system, which is quite interesting, and I'll cover that in a little bit later on, but it's basically a useful helper for interacting with files and stuff. So the first thing that you need to do is to create a file that you can call from the command line that's going to execute all of your commands. I've called this file architect for no real reason, and with that top line there, it means that I can just type PHP architect in my terminal, and as soon as I press enter, because we're using the Symfony console, it's going to give some information that you may have seen before if you've used stuff like Artisan. So that straight away starts to help us out a bit. After that, the first thing you want to do is to create a new console application class, and then register all your commands. At the moment here, I have this project command and this colors command, actually, if there's time to cover that. And then we're going to run all those commands. So you have to add each command. You have to create a class for it and attach it by the add method. So if you just have a look at this project command, and we'll have a look and see what it does. It's not much to it. It's a bit of a basic example. It has two methods. It has a configure method and an execute method. You have to have both of these in your command class. If you don't, you get a little error message that will say you must overwrite the execute method in the concrete command class. So you need them. So the first thing you have to do in the configure class is define the name of the command that you want to make. I've called this one print name, and it's just going to print the name of the supplied person. It's a bit of a basic example, but it should give you an idea. If I just take this print name and try and run with it now, it's going to tell me that there's an error because I haven't supplied the first name. And that's because down here where you supply all your required arguments, I've added an argument called first name, and it's a required argument. And this is just gives you a little bit of information about the field. So it just says it needs to be the first name of a person. So straight away we know that you can't just put print name, you have to put the name of someone. So I'm just going to put, just for an example, I'm just going to put Bob. And also down here as well, we've got additional options. I've got a last name option, so you can just run it like that, because these are just optional commands. These aren't necessary to to running the command. So that will complete the command. But this is an optional argument, and its value is required if you want to use it. So you can't just type and you have to put a dash dash and then the name of the command and an equals in order to be able to use it. But if you just try and run it like that, because we haven't supplied the last name, you get an error because you haven't supplied the last name. So I'm going to supply the last name of Smith, and it's a bit of a silly example here. I just wanted to demonstrate what would happen if you just wanted to add essentially a flag to say whether or not the person's a doctor. Really couldn't think of any other example, but this explicitly tells you that you can't pass a value with it. So you'd have to just write doctor to say they are a doctor, and if you tried to give it a value, it would give you an error because it doesn't accept a value. So with all that in place, when you run the command, it's going to print out Dr. Bob Smith, because although we've configured all the commands and said what we accept, we're not actually doing anything with them. It's in the execute method where you actually do stuff with these commands. So all I've done really is I've just uppercased the first character of the first name that you can retrieve from the input from the input class, and the last name. And also here I've just set a prefix if doctor's been passed, and it's blank if you leave off doctor. So you don't even have to supply a last name. You can just put Bob and doctors and you just get Dr. Bob. That's a pretty basic example. Another basic example is using the file system that I mentioned earlier. You have to pull that in here from Symfony, and after that you can do things like output your content to a text file, but it doesn't need to be like a text file. You could output it to a database if you wanted to set up something that'd be really useful for seeding your data. You could use like a faker library and connect your database to it as well using Eloquent or something. And these helper methods as well for the file system, you've got things like mkdir, symlink, and touch. And I know you can write all those out yourself anyway, but I just find it's a little bit more helpful. So if I run that and then I check, and then I've got an input text, and that's where Dr. Bob is now in input.text. One other thing I really like is the progress bars. So I write a lot of batch files on a current project I'm writing, and I have no idea sometimes how long they're going to take. So I'm really looking forward to putting something like this in, where this is just a silly loop that's just going to loop over 100,000 times, but it's going to use this progress bar helper, which you have to pull in up here, and it will give you a nice little bit of progress as it's working its way through. I did mention that I wanted to show you some different kinds of colors using the colors command. So I haven't got any arguments in this colors command because I just wanted to show you some different colors that you can set just to make the interface look a little bit more nicer if they're using the command line. So all they would have to do is just make architect and then colors, and then you get green, yellow, cyan. It doesn't work too great on iTerm for some reason, so that's why I've had to use the terminal for this. And you can also customize your own background, so that looks disgusting. It's where the text is going to be yellow and the background is going to be magenta. That's pretty much it for my examples, but you can install it via Composer. I didn't mention before, but the docs for it are on symfony.com, which you see down there. I recommend checking them out. I had some other ideas for other places you could use it. I did mention seeding already, but you could also use it to generate things like controllers and models if you're using a framework like Slim. I imagine there's probably a library that can do that already for you with library, but oh well. Something I like in something like Laravel is where you can type PHP artisan and then roots, and then it will list out all your roots. I don't think there's anything like that for Slim. Or if you're just working without a framework and you can build this up yourself, and then you'll be able to see all your roots without digging through dozens of files of wherever you've kept your roots over the years. And also, if you're feeling brave, because Artisan is built using the Symfony console now, you could technically edit those if you're feeling brave that were tied to a specific project, so that could do, instead of generating one controller, when you ran a line, it would generate 10 or something. That's sort of have any questions, or we can go to the pub. Thank you.